All right. Who's first?
Do you want to go first?
Sure.
I don't mind.
I'll go first. Is my screen shared?
Yeah, it is. Let me pull it closer so I can get a better look. Yep.
Is it too big? It's like a 4K screen.
No, that's fine. I just
That's
pulled
fine.
it
Yeah.
closer.
Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I actually had a good idea. I don't think I have
It's
very many
not
of those.
unusual.
Well, no,
Oh,
it's unusual for me to claim it as one.
no, that is true. Yeah.
But I think I hit something big.
Okay.
And let me try and explain it to you. Do you know what the Mango query language is?
Never heard of it. No.
Okay, do you know about the shape of what a MongoDB query looks
Yes.
like? Yep.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so what happens is a MongoDB query looks a bit like yeah. Hang on a second, mate. It's important to get the basing right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here, MongoDB, you can write a query where it's basically a JSON object, and you use special key names like $EQ to represent inequality, $and. It's sort of like it's like SQL, but the bonus is that you can express the query as a single JSON object. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
so here's a short list of them all. They look a lot like SQL. This is how you interact with MongoDB and a lot of equivalent databases, because they all the NoSQL crowd all sort of settled on taking this query language as a format, right? And so I then generated a piece of code that provided the same functionality as this query language is glossing over some precision. This is called the Mango query language. I was able to generate a piece of code that was surprisingly short. It was maybe 5 pages worth of code that gave all of these operations, but using Artifact as the backing mechanism. And so it was basically a very, very lightweight layer, but it was something that I needed for, for searching through customer records and that. Like if I want to query against a particular field and I want to do like a regular expression match, or, is email verified or some other type of thing, then I was going to need this kind of query language to do that. And turns out that it's very simple to do with Artifact as it is now. And here's this piece of code. So that's useful. That's probably about a 1 out of 10 on the Richter scale, though. It's like, well,
Did that just out of curiosity, did that flop from a session, or
no, this
was
was
that
me.
something
This
that
was
you?
me seeding it. I was like, hey, I got an idea, and I started saying, list all the commands of the Mango query language there, and then I said, because the idea hit me, I was like, using the API folder for interface definitions, write me a full Mango query interface that uses the Artifact interface as its primitive. and then out from that came a working, about 5 pages worth of code that I was like, that is surprisingly direct, right? But that's not the cool bit. This is just the lead up. So this is what O1 Pro generated. I thought it looked very neat to me. I was like, that is a nice, tidy piece of code. Then it was sort of missing a bit, right? So I'm like, get back to work, you lazy sod. Here we go. More and more and more. Tests as well. So kind. So kind. Right. But where it got cool.
Yeah.
So this part isn't cool. So I asked for globs. Glob, 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 glob. Okay. Now. I apologize for this. I may actually be in the wrong chat. This has been quite an interesting couple of days. Yeah, here we go. So then, this was basically the seed that I gave it. Like, how would you take the Mango query language and give me some options on what LLM powered queries would look like using the principles that the Mango language lays out.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
And now let me show
quite
you
smart.
what this was flopped. This part was flopped. So you'd say this query LLM classify. You'd say what fields within the JSON documents you wanted to run on. You'd give it the prompt, and then you'd tell it how to do a comparison at the end. Another option is summarization. Prompt summarize this text, blah, 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 and then do something with the result. This was an example that was given for how to use embeddings, vector embeddings to do queries that were vector embedded naturally. And then things like extraction. So basically transform it and then extract out what was left over from the transform. Now, why that's quite cool? Because first of all, because the query is a JSON object, it naturally fits into our action format that we use for communicating with the serverless functions. Second of all, you can set, different parameters for the model, token limits. We'll be able to set price limits, that sort of thing. But again, that's not the cool thing. The cool thing is this bit, where beyond just doing a query, I can reference a nap so that I can do a query and run it through a function and then do something with the result, which could be in turn another query or another nap or something like that. And so to skip through a bunch of the detail that's required to explore that out fully and figure out where you can and can't go with that model, this was the prompt that I used to get the example, because your big thing is like you've realized that if you run the model 10 times, you get a bunch of different answers, and the variance between the answers signals important information such as calibration rate of the LLM, confidence,
Divergence
um,
and convergence.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then over
Yeah.
over a series of turns, it indicates divergence on a topic. So you're like, we are outside of the bounds of what the LLM can reason about, or we are inside because we're narrowing. For code, I get things like, one of those things will have the best version, and it's easier to give it 10 versions that it generated and then pick one as opposed to try and get it right the first time. All those kinds of things. But what it comes down to is that a very, very simple example. And give me just a minute to try and say why this matters to you. Your version of running it 6 times or 10 times or whatever is just one of many theories that you and I have come up with for ways to extract higher grade information out of the machines at the expense of token burn or time or both.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and there's plenty more to come, and I think that what our bet is, or our gamble, is that no matter what the raw LLM is, you can always get a better result with a tactic or two, no matter what it is. You can get a better result
Yeah.
from arranging multiple agents together, from having diverse agents, like having DeepSeek R1 talk to O3 Mini High and reach convergence or divergence on what they're talking about, and the other major tactic is being able to include strategies. So as a human, you can see that you should do this task this way because that is a vastly superior process to follow. And if you can, there's for every task you can imagine as a person, there's always some kind of best practice or recommended steps that you can undertake that have a better result than if you just go at it naive. And I don't think that an LLM, no matter how glorious it is ever going to know which one I want, because it may have an idea of what the best one is, but I might want something different, because at a certain level, it becomes about preference and taste and my ability to understand the output, rather than no, this is the best process hands down. When the best process hands down is not, it's not clearly obvious. Like in a lot of business processes, you give someone 3 different options that are all good, and it's like, well, they're not like, earth-shatteringly better one way or the other, and it might not even matter which one you pick, but I like this one because I understand it, or it fits a certain culture or an ethos or something like that, right? So these strategies seem, but plus including like retrieval knowledge, so like knowledge-based information, right? So all these things point to the fact that there's a place for us where we can get better performance, more personalized performance out of the bots with a range of those tactics that I just described, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the problem becomes, well, how do we wire up to even test or evaluate the performance of any given strategy in a way that doesn't require some code or some futzing around with something, right? Like, just to take a simple example, your run it 6 times example is, up till now, I'd been like, oh, well, I probably need to make some code, right? Because what else am
And
I
also,
going to do?
why 6? Why did it choose 6? Yeah.
Right, that's right, that's right. And so now I'm like, okay, now I got to make a thing that lets you twiddle the number, and then like, what do you do with the output? Does it write to a file? Is it gonna, what's it gonna do? Right? There's all these sort of vagaries around it that would indicate that the solution I give you would be just for you, and then the next theory you have, I would have to make another thing.
Will be a different one.
Yeah, and
Right.
then what's the similarity between this strategy and a retrieval augmented strategy, or just pure vanilla, O3 arguing with R1? what's the similarity between those things, right? And you're like, well, bugger all except the file system and maybe the execution layer, perhaps, if you're lucky.
Mhm.
Right. But in
Mhm.
this query language, we can make a vast number of strategies that are declared using this JSON object, where I can say something like LLM
Ah,
classify, repeat count 5, decision strategy majority vote, using the GPT-4 model with temperature 0.7 and maximum token 64.
right.
And then that's your right there in
That's
like
really fucking good. That is really good.
right in like I don't know
Yeah.
10 lines is like a strategy that would have taken you and I going back and forth a bit, twiddling with code, all that. But now we've got this uniform way to say, well, that's what strategies are.
But you could also, sorry, go ahead.
I'm done. That's it. I have delivered.
Okay. Um, because it's in a succinct and well-defined manner. Um, Once in a while, every 6 months or whatever, you can actually get the bots to run an almost Darwinian system where we don't have to choose any of these things. It's like new model comes along, right? Let's just run it.
So you're saying
But
that
we're
we
not.
would have a library of strategies that we liked. We would have some benchmarks that we chose that could have been our own usage that we felt like a particular
Yeah.
strategy was the winner. And then when like everything around us has been upgraded, like the LLMs, the compute price, all this stuff has gone up, we're like, let's reevaluate these things with the new generational smarts
e-
in it
e-
and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because everything inside of this JSON, temperature 0.7, that's arbitrary, right? Maybe 0.68
Yeah.
gets a magnificent boost.
Yeah, so there's two benefits along the lines of questioning that you're giving here is that because it's declarative, we can fuzz the values. So is 0.7 the right number? I don't know. Let's run it at a set of increments and see which one benchmarks the best. Number one.
Yeah,
Number two
yeah.
is to say that if you can now have these strategies in this uniform um, standard language or standard expression, you can then pick one based on you now have a concept of best. So you can turn up to do a particular job or particular type of job, and you can say, give me the best strategy. And so long as there's been some prep work done, like there's a
Hmm.
benchmark for this type of thing because if enough people have decided, like, yeah, that's a common problem, here's a benchmark, you can dynamically select the strategy that benchmarks the best on the day, the best model, the best strategy, the best background knowledge base. You could be optimizing for performance. You could have to run it across 2 million queries, and so you want a different set of specs for what's good for you. Like price becomes an issue, latency becomes an issue. You may want offline running, all those things, and so now your strategy can be truly dynamic because you chose one that scored best, not this so far this very manual like pick it, bake it. It may have evolved around you. You wouldn't know. Um, you know, keep going,
Yeah,
and then
also, sorry, go on.
when you want to do iterations on your strategy, because they were in code, it was very hard to see where you could make iterations or where you could alter things slightly because it was code and each one was unique. Whereas here, it's not unique. It follows a template. It follows a pattern, and that allows you to splat around the one that you've got and be like, hit the neighborhood and benchmark that so that I know that I'm in at least a local minimum, local maximum, as opposed to like I'll just hand tweak this thing and it kind of feels about right.
I think that's brilliant. And also, pause. it's we could apply the whole divergence and convergence thing. I originally learned it probably came before then, but I'm ignorant about where. But I learned it from the Santa Fe guys doing the artificial life stuff, and um, there is no reason that any part of this we couldn't randomize, even the prompt. Maybe that's not the best prompt for this thing. The
Sure.
thing
Yeah.
that we need to look at is the metric.
The score is all that matters. So there's
And
I
the
think what you're
model
getting at,
overnight.
yeah, what you're poking at there, I can blend into one of the other features I was about to articulate,
Uh-huh.
is that
Yeah.
because the LLM has a natural flop towards the Mango language, like it knows it very well. There's a lot of examples on the web. It knows how it works. It seems that providing a function that it can call with a Mango language query is a lot better understood by the LLM than a piece of bespoke code that it's being asked to call to do strategy number 57A or something like that. And so it can generate these queries on the fly, which means that it can twiddle them and prompt engineer them and reason about the outputs or the results of the benchmark and tweak it for you without a hell of a lot of work from you. Now that's just one area. It gets super cool in the fact that you should be able to write a query that gives it a prompt and pass it in a function or a nap or something, and then tell it to write the output of that to a file and then rerun it as a new query. So you can
Yeah.
make something that
Yeah.
generates a range of different example prompts and then runs them and benchmarks them, and then that's the result of the
Yeah.
query.
Yeah. Yeah, precisely, because people are a bit shit at writing prompts.
Everyone sucks at it. Even the bot sucks
but you
at it,
kind
I've
of
noticed. But you need a couple of
yeah.
goes. You need a bunch of goes.
Yeah, but you need the metric. How does metrics fit into this? As in, I can understand you can run it, and then you can measure it and so on. But we still
It'll
need to
be
know the
it'll be
thing.
the same as what we had with our test format, where you'd score it in some way, and you'd either write a prompt to do the scoring, or you'd tally up some numbers. You know, like you could tell it to do like sum, like run it, pass or fail, and then sum to this file path with this field name, and then that's how it goes about updating the score of the eval.
Yeah, yeah. And I could easily see, given the next, you know, in a year's time, the model that is the deepest thinker can actually look at these and suggest what you don't even have to put the baseline in. You can just
Yeah.
say this is the structure that we're using. Give us a shot because
Yep.
this is what we're trying to do.
Yep. Yeah. Under the hood, it gets quite
Yeah.
cool too, because I can optimize this to be running multiple queries in parallel. Like if I tell it to run this prompt over this collection of files, then I can make each individual one be its own dedicated call. I can break it up between nodes, so that you're taking advantage of the content file system being, because it's hash based, it's locked. And so if we've got a huge collection of like 100,000 files or 1,000,000 files, we can break that up into like 100 chunks and process it independently. Because it's all hash locked, we know that we're dealing with the exact same piece of data, and so it doesn't really matter which computer was running it. So we can do these things. We can get like some really good parallelization out of this language under the hood. I think what I'm trying to get at is that if we standardize the language, then those optimizations can happen independent. Whereas right now, trying to write bespoke bits of code for each strategy, the optimization is less. It kind of doesn't just turn up for you. Whereas if we got the language, then we work on making the language performance go up, and then everything just benefits without having to mess with or understand any of the internals. Like we
Yes.
just keep delivering
That's that.
performance enhancements, and everyone's code just keeps running the same.
Yeah. And at some point, the prompt does that flop that we saw a couple of weeks ago, where a couple of bots simply made up their own language just because it was more efficient. Which is really interesting. And the temperature is again a variable, but even the metrics, if you have a suitably concise idea of what you're trying to achieve, you don't even have to say what are the important metrics. The metrics should be easily promptable. Not now, but maybe 1 or 2 models away. This is really cool.
I think this is a powerful thing. This is like the thing that the NAPS component or the NAPS standard was missing. Because it means that we can manage the parallelization in a standard way. And so you can look at a chunk of configuration effectively, and you can already get a sense of what it does. Like this is a way to declare agents as a, in a 25 line file, and you're like, this is when you send something into the agent, this config defines how it will react and what files in your knowledge base are going to alter or be read from, and what's going to govern its behavior.
Yeah. And trivially, correct me if I'm wrong, but you could also add in cost per token if someone decides to hike their costs for a certain model.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which they're undoubtedly to do. Then you're always going to get the best outcome.
Yep.
This is really nice. I really like this. And you're saying that the bots are. I know it wasn't a flop, but the bots are cool with this, right?
The bots are. This is very natural for them. There's no fighting,
weirdness that they come off.
No,
and
this makes
change some of the format or anything like that when passing from bot to bot.
It comes out very natural.
You're muted.
What? Sorry, I must have bumped the button. No, it comes off. Can you hear me now? I scratched my chin and I must have hit the mute button by mistake. My bad. So it comes out very natural. It lands naturally.
Nice. That's good work. That is solid. I'm impressed by that. Okay.
So things left to do is we still don't have an execution layer, really. It's not, that part's not blockchained. The data part is blockchained, but the execution is still not, is left undone. The rate at which I'm going through things, that at a guess I'd say that's either a week, maybe a bit more. Like it is unnerving how fast I can generate code with the latest bots. But the coding effort is no longer the problem. It's the how to ask the right question, and is it the right question, and can it survive can it survive actually being done? Because half the problem is I get things done the way I think I wanted them and realize that actually that's infeasible and it sounds stupid when I say it out loud or run it. So I have to redesign. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and the pace things. Well, it's accelerating, of course, but pace things are going. The only virtue here in AI land is to be able to self-adapt and get the AIs to adapt, which this is very much because it's structured and it'll understand it and it can change things like temperature, it can add in cost and so on, and then choose
yeah, it probably
from
like
within
the
limits.
iterations that it would ask for probably don't matter. Like this feels like the kind of thing that can stabilize and can stay the same for years, just like SQL was is largely the same as what it first came out in 1978 or whatever, and same with the Mango query language, and so that there really just isn't all that much that you ever want to do um, when you're asking these kinds of
Oh
queries,
yeah,
and so
yeah. Sorry, I misspoke. I'm not talking about changing the structure. What I'm thinking about is, say if you got a very large query and there are various models that are good or bad at that, then it wouldn't be hard to put in previous experience behind this in terms of, okay, so this is going to cost X. You're
right,
going to take
right,
these
right,
amount of tokens in order to do the tokens, but
right.
you've not actually run the query yet. But it takes
No,
like
I
a few
think that
milliseconds.
what you're asking for is is possible to express using the language as it is now. So you would start off with like
Yeah,
the first step would be the assessment and picking the right tools query, and then the
yeah,
result of that would be fed on to the next stage of the query, which would be to actually run it. So it'd be like take the result from this and the result from that, and blah blah blah, and then run this. And that's like this language, I think, can allow you to do those kinds of amplification stages. It's almost like a, a very crude language to describe or script intelligence, because
yeah,
the legitimate moves you can make with an intelligence is not that many. It's not that many, and this covers kind of all of them. I mean, I'd like to know what useful things are not covered by this by this system. I'm like, it's not obvious to me. Yes, I can come up with some things that can't be done. Why would you? Well, I've never needed those things, and so I think it's a one of those plateaus or a stability point in the landscape where we can sort of like how Git is, right? Like Git popped up and it's been this stable
mhm,
thing that everyone's like, oh, well, you know what? We needed that all along, and it's been the same format since 2009, more or less, when Linus
yeah,
reportedly coded it in 3 weeks or whatever, right? After 10
yeah,
years of suffering and ideation about how it should work, because he knew very well what he wanted it to do and he'd thought about it a lot. But the last
yeah,
version, the version that became popular, was very elegant, very small.
yeah. The bit I'm getting excited about is so on your screen here, all the
Yeah.
bits in what was that, brown?
I
Uh,
don't know enough
um,
about colors to answer you there.
let's call it brown. There's brown
The
and green,
keys.
right?
Yeah, okay, so
Um,
the green is
yeah,
values and the
yeah.
other color
So the
keys.
yeah, the value, the keys are the thing that are stable. The values are the things that we
You're right.
can
Right.
iterate on using AI.
And especially when it's a free form text thing, which is like intellect, there's also no reason why these queries can't include binary data like images or sound, because it's still
Yeah.
just the same. It's like this piece of information, here's what I want you to do with it, and then here's what I want you to do next. And so we end up with
Yeah.
these like pipelines.
Yeah, and maybe the prompt is more efficient and fewer tokens if that's our metric. If it's written in Sanskrit,
Maybe.
you know,
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
that's that. The point is you let the bots flop on the green,
Yeah.
and you tell it what the brown is.
Right. So, yeah, that's what
No,
I got
that's
for
really nice.
today,
That's really
and
nice.
I think I should spec this out fully, because it's kind of like this is a prototype, and then I think we should be excruciatingly clear how it integrates with the NAP package format. And then after that, we're like, well, that's that. We got Artifact as the data layer. Naps as the execution
already
layer.
see this. Yeah, I can already see this as going to be hugely useful for the stuff that I'm doing.
Right.
Um,
Even if we don't have the big bots available, even if like O1,
obvious.
yeah, even if O1 Pro is not in the API, we can still get a long way with just what we got plus this language.
Yeah, but the thing is, remember the model is on the green side, and so we need to be completely model agnostic because certainly after DeepSeek, they've shown a way of making models with not many millions, and so
Allegedly.
probably there's going to be a large many. Well, yeah, it was like 100 million to get to the point of training, but the training was 6 million. But now they've like proven it.
I don't think it
Other
matters
people
though.
can.
I don't think it like whatever. Let's just say DeepSeek cost X million. You to get better than that, you need to pump more money at the problem, and people are gonna. So whether it's cheap or not, I don't think is sort of irrelevant. It's all just it's racing. Like, why does the price? Why does the price matter?
Yeah, I've got a suspicion that there's going to be a plethora of models. I mean,
Okay,
we don't know.
but do you think we can
Neither of us know.
still
It doesn't matter to us.
right? We can yoke
But
them all.
the point I was making, yeah, exactly. That's the point. Because the model is on the green side, which allows that kind of sifting, a very light prompt to go right. Okay, so what should be the green side? But the flip side of that, on the edge of the chaos, is the stable side is the brown. If that makes sense.
Yep.
It's a thing of beauty actually you come up with here. It's really nice.
Yeah, oh, I'll make it.
Nice.
I'll make it, and we'll put it to work.
Yeah. Please do. You make it. I'll use it for sure.
Okay. The next things, the only other things I have are around. Wow. Getting some good simple stories for how to test the attribution algorithm. And it seems that you can get a long way with Aesop's fables.
Okay.
Right, like because no, because a lot of them are about fairness and attribution, and we don't need complicated business stories of like, and then the contractor did this. Like, we don't need all that. We can test the basics of the system. Like, if the system doesn't work on Aesop's fables, then the system doesn't work on anything. Is is my general.
If it doesn't converge on ESOP, yeah,
Yeah, right. Like,
it
well,
should converge.
this is like the baby
Yeah,
step. This is like, when you first make a CPU and you're like, okay, get it to add 1 to 1. What's the answer? Like it needs to
yeah,
do
yeah.
the basic things here. The Little Red Hen is an old favorite of mine. Like, um, it's like who should
What's
get
the
the
little red hen? What's that little red hen?
Little Red Hen. What kind of
Dancing
childhood
behind
did
the
you have?
gate.
The
Scottish one. She asked the other animals for help. No one helped. She ground the wheat into flour. She baked the flour into bread. In the end, okay, right. You're gonna have to walk me through this one because
The Little Red Hen is a
uh,
story about a hen that goes through all the laborious steps of making a cake and asks all the animals for help. And then none of them help her. She does it all herself. And then when the cake's ready, they all come up and want to eat the cake, and she's like, sod off. That's the story.
okay. uh,
But
I honestly am ignorant in this area of
okay, look, I don't know what
children's
Scottish
fables.
people
Well,
get. So
I know the
yeah,
title. I know the title, but
you
anyway,
probably got
what was
some
the
fucking William Wallace thing going on. But the point is that there's a
yeah.
range of fables here that are actually very well known to the bots. Um,
Okay.
Tortoise and hare, ant and a grasshopper. I've never heard of. But the point where they have multiple actors in them and they have some reward going on, and it may be that we have to make slight derivations on these fables to exercise. They're like unit tests for the attribution algorithm. It's like it for some reason feels like I understand it more if it's related in a simple fairy tale or fable or children's story. But that's really the
Mm-hmm.
kind of unit test that we need to exercise the system, because I feel like I understand these stories because they're made so simple so that kids can get them, and so it makes it easier to deal with the more complicated operations that our system is trying to do, because for all its fancy bits, if it can't get this right, then it sucks.
So it's like a two-dimensional metric.
It's more like an eval. Like, it's like saying that, because you and I can manually score how the attribution should have happened at each stage in the story. So you'd be like, well, the hen
Mm-hmm.
has got to this stage, and therefore the attribution due is this, and we can manually score it and call those reference, and using these reference scores, we can understand whether our system is producing close to reference or not at all, right? These are like the
Yeah. Okay. With utter respect, I'm not clued up enough and not initially totally convinced because
okay, fine.
the number of dimensions that we're working with, I'm not sure how it would translate.
What if it
Because we're
doesn't
talking
cover?
about
Well,
different.
I'm telling you, if it doesn't, if the dimensions don't cover the dimensions covered by these fairy tales, then we've got something wrong. That's what I'm
I need
saying.
to read more fairy tales now.
Did you not have fairy tales as a kid?
Not these ones. No.
These came from England. You can't. Okay. Anyway,
No, they didn't. They came from Denmark, I think.
it's all the same place. I mean, Stone Soup, right? This seems
But
like
yeah,
one that you know all
but
about for
it's an
some reason.
interesting. It's a very interesting like bootstrap, isn't it?
It's just unit
Because
tests,
it should
unit
be.
evals. It should be able to do these simple things, and then as an
Yeah.
introduction to any, because we're focused a lot on coders, right? But the people that have the money are often not coders, and so they need to understand the system from a more neutral standpoint. This is a good neutral standpoint. It's like everyday story that people have familiarity with, and we're like, well, we analyzed all these stories and we got this type of an attribution split for all the characters. And it should be something
Oh,
that we all kind of agree with.
hmm,
It's like a
that's
grounding. It's
interesting.
like
I
a
wonder
set
if
of grounding stories.
is I wonder if there's any others. Brothers Grimm or something. I
Yeah,
don't
there's a
know.
lot. There's a lot. There's a lot. And we'll be able to find good
Oh, you
ones.
got there's a bunch of Brothers Grimm on the
Yeah,
screen there. I just noticed. Yeah.
the Golden
Um,
Goose. Some of them aren't so, like, yeah.
but it's all to do with the whole point of um, children's stories is to teach what's fair. It's meant to teach character, isn't it? It's like this is
Something
how
like
you're
that,
going
right?
to
Yeah. So the
act.
stories are already shaped in our favor to be about
Yeah,
fairness anyway. And then
yeah.
we also want to be able to express more deviant views on these fairy tales. Like we want to be able to show that we can tweak the dials of how we weight things, and you get absurd but defendable results.
Well, yeah. I mean, you could also take the original text and say make the bad guy win, which would
Right.
be negative
Yeah.
test.
Right. You can test the inverted story. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So this
I'm
is
gonna
what
have to think
I
about this one, but it's really, really interesting idea.
because you've been
Uh,
talking about, we need some test data, and I'm like, yeah, we need some test data,
yeah.
but what does valid test data even look like in our world? It looks like we wouldn't even know, right? But this is neutral. This
Well,
is
it's time tested as well,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is I hold quite high store onto uh, anything that has gone through the Darwin selection of a good few hundred years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mm, probably has something to do with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And because we're at such a early stage, these should not overload the system, and hand we can still understand it by hand is the main thing. Like we can,
Oh,
as it gets more
yes.
complex, like a
So,
typical
yeah,
software
yeah.
project, we can't, we can no longer hand check it, right? We're like, well, shoot, I'm just gonna have to trust that it looks about right, and I can't check every single piece of reasoning, but it's sort of right. But these things are so small that we can do that.
I think that's quite a good idea. There's something here, isn't there? I don't know. Next time we talk, let me think about this.
Yeah, and then
Um,
the idea can
but there's
expand
a,
to
a bit.
bigger stories, right? Like if you took Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and ran attribution across that whole story, what would be the final score for each character, right? So you can start to process bigger and bigger bits.
There's but there's yeah.
Right?
Using stories. I mean, there's quite a lot there. I mean, you could
Mm,
put in, for example, you know, pirates were actually hugely progressive guys. They had contracts, they had, shares, they even had pensions. Um, and all that's written down, and that's just one example. I guess it's a selection of stories that match what the ethos that we want to put into this is going to be checked against, and it will be easy enough to flip them as a kind of negative test, saying, if take game theory, Nash's theory, if there is something that is going wildly different from that, you could use Nash's theory and generate a child story from it easily. Well, there's the prisoner's dilemma. There's effectively a story. Um, do you snitch on your other person, which is effectively you've got the matrix. I'll not talk you through it, but you've got the matrix, and there's various values, and that's something that could easily be understood in order for the manual checking, which is what you're talking about, because this is understandable against something that is wildly, numeric, and it's like, is that fair or is that not fair?
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
And apart from that, the only other minor mention is that we're sort of at the stage where I can start to benchmark the performance of Artifact as an actual database. And I've found that, so before now, the benchmarks that I'd always been striving for were correctness ones, like does this thing work? But then now we probably want to have a crack at getting a ranking in some of these, like the cloud serving benchmark, because if we can show that, look, we've got this blockchain data structure under the hood, and it benchmarks at these scores for the like the YCSB benchmark, transaction processing, like we can show these different scores that they're sort of on par, but it's also able to operate offline and has consensus and all that. Like, that's a really good thing. Magic, buddy, magic.
Again. Well, if you just did last time, you did it again.
Yeah, I'm back.
You're back. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a remarkable performance gain that I've noticed in using Git that I wasn't quite aware of, and the sharding was what sort of got it through to me. The fact that we're using these S3 buckets to be basically the object store, and then we're only using an actual traditional database as the just saying what the latest commit is, so basically a consistency source. The fact that you can look at one single hash and it could represent terabytes worth of data, which you can then go and fetch in parallel or run queries across independently. If you just said, hey, 1,000 computers, split up this Git-based file system according to this formula, each one of you run the query on that and then send it back to me, to do like massive map reducers. The thing that's really got me excited about the performance of this database is that those S3 buckets, they have vast capacity. Like, you can push and pull from them at obscene rates, probably the highest rates in the internet, in and out of those buckets. And the only database bottleneck we have is what is the latest hash. And everything else can be immediately parallelized and use these whopping great stores. So that's given me a lot of hope for the actual competitiveness of what our scores could be in these standardized database benchmarks. So yeah, that's it for me, buddy.
Well,
all
this
yours.
match is quite usefully for I've been doing. I'll share my screen now.
Oh, last little update. I also got the synchronizing with the accounting system going good. Hit a snag with, we realized that actually the running the two systems side by side was going to be more complicated than we thought, and so we're now pursuing completely replacing the accounting system with this new artifact-based system. And the amount of effort and well, not entirely big bang. It's what we're currently able to read and keep in read sync, but we're going to abandon trying to keep in write sync. And so we're going to bring up.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
because yeah.
So we'll bring up the new system in read sync in parallel and make sure it's always giving the same answer as the existing system. And then once enough days have passed with no discrepancies, then we'll just halt the old system and then the new one takes off. But during the process, I had figured out what was required from the artifact side to do write sync as well. And I think that's a very good general solution that we can use for going into a company with an existing database. And we're saying, look, we don't need to replace everything. We're just going to run cooperatively with these existing systems, and we'll just pull over bits a piece at a time, a little bit at a time here and there. So, and a lot of companies
That
could get by with
matches,
just read.
yeah, that matches well with the appetite that I've been seeing.
Right. No one
Talking
wants
to
a big
people
bang, right?
who might actually, nobody wants a big bang. No,
Mm,
nobody likes that.
mm.
Um,
Which I think is the
Only
one thing
because,
that buys us some time in this mad AI scramble is that no one likes a big bang, and the AI is not a mind reader. It needs the context. It needs your private data, and all your private data sitting in these fucking systems. And so that's the only
well,
thing holding it all back.
yeah, but the also the interesting thing is there's a lot of people every day waking up and listening to the radio, and it's AI is going to do this, they're going to do that. Anything between, we need regulation, and it's all going to be horrible, and we're all going to be slaves. Um, and the uncertainty and doubt leads to anyone with half a mind will say, well, let's leave someone else to make the major mistakes, and we'll work it out as we go along. But the problem with that, of course, is you're missing out on this amazing opportunity by waiting even 6 months.
Yeah.
And so incremental is the thing, I think. Um,
Incremental's the thing, and if we have a network of people who we've got the basic patterns in place of how you do read and write sync, and then it's up to them to implement a specific thing. Like this was for one particular flavor of accounting system. There'll be others, and people can like do that work, sell it to the people who are consuming it, but also resell it to other people with the same system, so that over time, the number of workplaces that you can walk into and just be like, oh, we've seen that system before, clunk. And then you're like jacked in basically with just credentials, and off you go, right? Like so long as you're hitting, if you could hit
yeah,
80% of places, like you'd be absolutely winning, I think.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Um, and everything I'm seeing at this side is um, would be warmed to that,
Okay.
because people don't know AI and therefore don't trust AI, but know they need to get AI, otherwise they're going to be wiped out. Blah blah, all that usual stuff. Um, I want to show you something.
Okay.
Right. Okay. So first off, okay. So my conch. Is that
Your
right? Are you,
conch.
or is there anything else
I'm
you want
done.
to?
I'm done.
Okay. I think this is going to marry quite nicely. Now, sorry I went quiet for a week there, but going down to white paper turns out to be quite hard. Um,
Mate, everywhere's hard.
what I, what I did was I went back through all our previous recordings and notes. Well, by saying that, I actually took down the recordings, got the MDs, and then had them summarized in detail, and then read every single thing that we said in the summary that the AI had come up with, uh, and then got AIs to make sure that there was nothing missed between the cracks. Now, um, this is quite interesting. So, the end result. Remember, I was exceptionally keen on trying to get a model to see how this thing works. about weightings and about all these various things we sang. So we've got one. It's on the
Okay.
screen now. Now I just run that. Uh, so what this is doing is a fairly simple Python. I didn't write a single line of it. But what I did was I took my notes and then added those notes to what we already had. Told it to ignore anything that I hadn't mentioned. And then I told it to create a game where we've got uh, actors, various actors with various roles. We've got epochs. So this is Project One. This is Global Epoch 2, which is where we very infrequently kind of calibrate between the weights. It's got the payouts between the thing. Now, the interesting thing is this is not just coders. I don't expect you to read this, but I can send you over the Python if you want to play with it. But I'm still playing with it myself. But uh, uh, you can pull the output, straight in instead of having to look at it and saying, well, okay, why? Like, how are you deciding the weights? And it's like, okay. And it comes up with some pretty interesting things. Initial values chosen arbitrarily, which is what we were talking about. And then I came up with a novel way of adding in this learning rate, um, which adjusts the weights based on evidence and involves an initial assumption and then dynamic and future as well. This is not just the only one looked at.
Why are you
The
using
maths,
why are you using O3 Mini?
because it's fast and it's good,
You should be. Why aren't you using O3 Mini High?
because it's slow and it's good. I just want
O3
good.
O3 Mini High is slow.
For me, it is, yeah.
We're not talking about O1 Pro.
Honestly, yeah. O3 Mini is like fast as anything. It's like
Well, can you show me
fraction of
what
a second.
O3 Mini High looks like in terms of speed? Like it,
Sure. Can I
like
switch
how I
over?
guess how do you know that it's good enough?
Well, this is where it mashes with the what you're talking about with the children's stories. It's like um, it's come up with. I'll run that thing. Okay, so it just did a random distribution of various things that people may do, and on this, uh, actors within each cycle can switch from being, you know, talent to demander to funder and so on. Everything we've said. So that's all taken into account. Um, and there seems to be some convergence around attribution. Now, we go back to the
Oh, so this has
O3
run
high thing.
several epochs, and then it's sort of like the
Yep.
attribution table is twiddling a bit. So contribution changed each epoch?
No contribution is set.
Okay, but each epoch
This is
there's some sort
attribution.
of something happened where it's like, oh no, I've decided now that something's
Yep.
changed and here's the new values.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. In fact, you can query about it. I'll do it now. I wonder if I pick up my voice. Let's find out. Uh, can you hear me? Nah, bollocks.
No, try now. Go now. Oh, no, you got to give it a second, dude. It was just about to run.
Is it?
Yeah, like it takes a while to connect.
Hello. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with this. Turn on microphone. Okay. Now I know why. I was messing around with. It doesn't matter. I was messing around.
Okay. All right, cool.
I'll just type it. Um. So. Right. Um. Uh. My typing's got really worse than VR. Um, the your main point last time we talked was to try and get it into the blockchain idea of right, this is it, and here's the next epoch, and so on. And the second thing, the major thing that you're saying was, let's just choose one attribution algo, um, and go with it, but then look to see how it progresses with time. Now, the reason I'm really quite pumped by this, and I'll send you over the code and I'll send you over this link as well, is now we've got a way of modeling. Now, these these are just tokens, right? Received 19.6 jubes, whatever.
Mm.
However, there is reasoning behind it, and all this reasoning is generated solely from the depot. So the
So the
game,
idea is that it is defendable. Like I could hit this with all kinds of arguments, including a bunch of,
yep,
like I could brute
yeah,
force it
yeah,
with prompts where I'm like, try and get this thing to change its mind,
yeah.
right?
Oh, here's an interesting one. What was your choose one of your children's stories?
Little Red Hen.
Uh,
Oh, why don't you pick one that you know?
Little
Because it sounds like I know more than you.
No, I know nothing of these.
Yeah, no, you
Does
use one all the time. You
this?
use Tiger Soup.
No, it's not really a fairness thing. That's just
Okay,
a warning about
okay, okay, fine.
not
All right,
understanding
fine,
how
fine, fine,
information
fine,
is put through.
fine, fine, fine.
Right. Uh, it's quite hard to type in VR.
Why?
Give your assessments of how this last set of results um, uh, is fair, where fair is defined by the story. Was it Little Red Hen? Little Red Hen. Yeah, it'll work out. I've never tried this actually. in summary, by linking payouts directly to contributions time, waiting, and incorporating simulation strives to ensure, just like the Little Red Hen story, is past the test. And this is just like a flop. So the Python code then running for that is a flop from the repo. I've not messed around with any weights. I've not looked at any weights. I've just said go with it. Start with random weights, and then let's get conversions to what's fair. Now, the reason this is interesting is because with your idea about having the Little Red Hen as a test for what fair is, now we've got something we know that we can ask it to converge towards. Otherwise, we'll just be saying, yeah, it's fair to pay the coders everything, and the project managers
I think I get what you're saying, but I think that you are not accounting for the fact that that notion of internal fairness is extraordinarily well shaped in a model like what OpenAI produces. Like, that's the difference between a cheap $6 million training run and a model from OpenAI, like their 4.0 version that they released 2 days ago. Like,
right.
their
Right.
shit has etiquette. It has taste. It has fairness, right?
Yeah, this was the flop, and it's like, yeah, I only told it these dimensions.
Yeah, it's always going to have a flop answer, and I think that our challenge or our work is to provide ways to calculate more precise, defendable values to compare the dimensions for.
That's kind of thing. We kind of need a ground spike, don't we? Because it would take too long to explain all this to someone who really, is like, why should I bother? Right? You're going to turn up, turn up at the Dreamcatcher and go, I could do that. It's like, okay, how do you guys do it? It needs to be simpler than this. However, what I'm saying is, and I'm probably going to need about another week to actually get some good data and
I don't think you know how long you need, but yeah.
Yeah,
longer.
2 weeks.
You need longer.
Who knows? I need more time than, yeah, I need more time. But what I'm trying to get is some form of graph or data of different runs, and let's get some convergence on, okay, so this is what we should be thinking about in terms of what is fair. Now you've come up with the hen thing, which I think
Hey man, I'm
cool.
not trying to tell you that those stories say what fair is. I'm saying that.
Yeah, but no, it's a test though, isn't it? That's the thing. Because
Well,
it's been tested over the last couple hundred years.
no, it hasn't. It has not. It has not been tested because it hasn't been tested with numbers. As far as I'm aware, and admittedly I haven't searched, no one's drawing up a cap table for the Little Red Hen and her motley crew, right? And so in terms of tested, like, it's really like we have an instinctive sense of what fair is in that story, but it's actually not gonna be it's actually not going to be all the cake goes to the Little Red Hen. Like, we could add in little bits of new information to the story. Like, turns out that the wheat was growing in the fox's field. Now, how much of the cake is the fox due?
Exactly. Where did the wheat come from?
Right? There's all these questions, right? And listen.
Yeah.
The system needs to, a component that we haven't captured as a requirement is the system needs to ask questions about things that are obviously missing. If you give it the Little Red Hen story, what I would expect it to say is like, well, what relationship do the contributions of the wheat field, the blah 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 blah, the stuff that it knows had to have been done, does that relate to any of these characters? Because if no, then yeah, it's real simple. But if yes, then the answer's a little more nuanced.
Well, this is interesting. Well, let's try it. Let's try it live. So, fuck's sake. Given the roles that were considered in the data that I last gave you, consider the what do we call it? The lessons to be learned from the little red hen and propose new roles that adhere to the lessons in that story.
Wait,
I don't know.
wait.
I don't
Yeah,
know what's
wait.
gonna happen here.
Can you use
What's up?
O3 Mini High and just like can you stop that and use O3 Mini High so I can
Yeah,
see
sure.
what you're talking about?
Yeah. Do- um, yeah. It might be a lot to do with
No,
my impatience.
I
We
don't
do
get
a
the
lot,
purpose. I don't get the
a lot of
purpose of
this.
this question. Like, what lessons are to be learned in the Little Red Hen? Like, what are you trying to get out of it here?
Right. So, we've decided arbitrarily that there are certain roles and there's certain dimensions.
Yeah.
Um, and you've just added in completely, sideball into what is a very strongly defined mathematical model, and we can run this as many times as we can do. We can get conversions, we can do Monte Carlo, and so on. But what all we got at the moment is like coders, there's project manager. We've got guys that are actors that can switch between being a consumer and talent and trader and all that stuff. Now the question is there anything that we've missed that would actually make it fair? Now, what
No,
I
mate,
do with
no, mate, no,
this
no, no, no,
is
no, no. Stop,
immediately
please
goes
stop,
on.
please stop, please stop.
Yeah.
I think you've gone astray. The point of this exercise, the point of the system that we need to produce is one that is malleable and it learns continuously. It is not for us to even attempt to have the number of dimensions, which I'm assuming that's what you're calling roles now.
Oh no, that's exactly what I'm saying. I've just added in Little Red Hen, and it's come up with four things that are not being considered. That's the whole point.
What do you mean the
That's what I
whole
was trying to
point? Tell me the
demonstrate.
point then. Tell me the point then.
The
What's the
the,
point?
the point is with the structure we've got that produce those models, we can take the results and then say, is that fair? Now, by fair, we mean, in this case, Little Red Hen. And it's like, there's a free rider. You're right. We haven't thought about free riders.
That's
Initiating.
I'm still not hearing the point
That's
though.
not in there. The point being is this is dynamic. That's the whole point.
So
The whole point
are you
is,
demonstrating to me the dynamicism of the system here?
yeah, I'm
Okay,
showing
and
that the dimensions are completely dynamic depending on Little Red Hen or. one of
But
those
are
other ones.
you? It feels to me like you're suggesting the Little Red Hen as reference material.
No,
Is that what you're
it's a
doing?
check.
What's the difference
No.
between a check and reference material?
So, for example, um, it's the rinse and wash cycle, isn't it? So, free rider, we can now ask it, say, right, consider free riders, consider initiators. I don't know
But
what
what are
the
you trying to
character is.
say here? Are you saying that after the prompt that you just entered, you expect now that this particular chat has been updated with these new things to look at, and now it keeps going forwards?
And looks at new weightings between them. Yeah, and converges if we have the right metrics. Yeah, exactly.
And what was wrong with the speed of O3 Mini High here?
It's probably more my irritation because
You can't wait 11 seconds to get a
you might
vastly
notice
more important thing?
most of the questions I have are not that important. In
Sorry,
fact, often I go back
quality.
to 4.0 because it's strict. No, it depends on what you're asking. If you're asking something that's difficult, like this, yeah, sure. Mostly I'm on O3 Mini, and sometimes I'll just go down to 4.0 just to get, you know,
So what?
basic, quick, correct
So
answer.
what's the point?
And
Oh, what's
and
the point
DeepSeek and Grok.
of you spending 400 or 200 US a month on a pro subscription if you're just using this model?
No, no, no. I'm not just using this model. I'm saying I'm model agnostic. I'm using DeepSeek as well.
How much do
I'm
you
using
think you
Grok
use
as
the
well.
pro? Do you use the pro features of the pro subscription, or not really?
No, I believe so. Yes. Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
think you use them?
In fact, well, I don't know. That's for percentage. I don't know. A majority of the time.
A majority of the time, what? Majority of the time, what do you use?
Majority of the time, I'm on O3 Mini, and occasionally I go to Deep Research and then get a cup of coffee.
Oh, right. So deep research is deep research is definitely
Yeah.
a pro thing.
But when it's not needed, I'm just asking something fairly simple, and also when I want
This is
a
probably a
different
difference
answer.
between the two of us. I would say that nothing is so
Yeah.
simple that you shouldn't use a high grade model, because what the high grade models do is they they tell you things that you didn't even think of that are related. And that's the value that I get out of O1 Pro and waiting for the response, is that sometimes it gives me things that I would have talked about if I knew more, or things that are related, but sort of very loosely, but
Yeah,
it does
I
it in an
agree.
intelligent way.
I agree with that. But these other models, sometimes I'm just using them instead of Google because I can't remember last time I Googled. But most of the time, what I'm doing is it's a bit like, uh, having a 4-year-old asking a really stupid question. So you get a really smart answer, and then you stick it into, well, um, this is 14B DeepSeek,
All right.
and
Well,
you
look,
just say,
I'm
"What do you
not.
think?"
Yeah. Where
It's
is
it's
or how are we looking towards the? So last time we spoke, I printed out a README that you generated, and we went through that, and I was
yep.
like, yeah, that's good, but here's these different things about it. How are we looking in terms of that type of deliverable?
Yeah. As I was saying, turns out that your recommendation for going down to a white sheet of paper is excellent, but actually quite hard. So
So
probably get
why?
a couple
So
of weeks
okay.
then.
So I'm guessing there's nothing. You got nothing to show that's presentable in terms of a README type of thing like what we went over last time. Is that right?
Not as an overall README, no.
Okay. So
Um,
what I need you to do is to try and produce a shitty version of that as early in your cycle as you can, because what'll happen is
mhm.
that you'll start deviating here, there, and everywhere as you go from a blank sheet of paper where you think you know what you're doing to now all this knowledge has come at you, and now you've made these trade-offs and these compromises, and now you've renamed this term and that term, and now you're like, oh shit, this bit's hard. And so if you don't publish early, like really early, like day 2, you're not gonna be able to stitch it back together, and you'll be in the same conundrum, the same quagmire that you were that led to you needing to strip down to a piece of white paper anyway.
Yeah, okay, I can do that. I can do that.
Yeah,
Well, actually,
do
you
it,
see
do
the
it
number of times I've said "readme" in this, even just today.
right, but
Been doing,
do it,
yeah,
do it, and then go through it with me so that we can reconcile on what deliverable means, because it is not sufficient for you to solve this problem in a way that satisfies you. You need to hand it off to me or to someone else that can build it and make it happen. And in that process, you will get a lot of pushback because we're like, mate, you just that's in your head only. That doesn't make sense in the real world, and I can't even do that. Or, what about these other things? So the sooner you can get a published package out, a published thing, anything, the better.
yeah, yeah. No, no. Uh, I would just assert this. Although, just even today, if you look down the number of generated things that say about README,
I see
I'm
that.
on it.
Yeah,
However,
I
it's
see that.
taken. It's the white sheet of paper was actually quite laborious.
Yeah, I
So it's
know.
only in the last couple of days that
I know
I'm
all
getting
that.
back.
I know
I
all
will
that.
get. Yeah, yeah. I don't have it yet. I don't have it yet.
Okay, are you
I will
working
get it to
towards
you,
it
but
as a
believe me,
matter of urgency?
yeah, yeah. Like I'm looking at how to format this and get information across from the white sheet of paper. Let's build it up.
Right, but I
Do it
worry that
again
you're trying to get it right.
across.
I worry that you're concerned with the quality of the information when I'm not at all. I'm concerned about the format and the deliverability of the information. I don't care about the quality of it. Does that make
Yeah, okay.
sense?
The it kind of does. We need to sync on because you've come up with uh the JSON format you went through, which is um actually very much in sync with what I'm doing here. Uh,
Well, no,
and
no. It
but
just feels like it's in the same area, but until I've delivered the language, I might not be able to make good on some of the things that I wish for in that language, and how you interpreted it is very fragile because you might not. We are not. We feel in the same area, but we are not in sync. Like we are not connected yet because the deliverables from both of us are fictitious.
the I think we need to meet in the middle. I need more information from you in order to meet
Okay.
in the middle
So tell me that
from what
then. Like that's
I'm
what
doing
you
here.
need to be trying to get that from me, and not like I shouldn't be trying to push it on you,
Yeah,
right? Because you need to be trying to get it off me. But
yeah. Well, yeah. So a README, for example, of the stuff that you went through earlier on. Well, actually, we can probably generate it, but it'll probably be wrong. You'd need to read it. So if you generate it, read through, make sure it's right, send that over. I'll do the
What?
same on this side,
What?
and then we'll
No.
see where it goes.
I went through the thing that you generated line by line with you, and I gave you my feedback on it. Where's the next iteration of
Yeah,
that?
and
Now you're
and then
asking me
after
to
that we
generate
said, right,
something?
white sheet of paper, white sheet of paper.
I don't care. That's your working
And
and that's your problem, but that deliverable is still the same because the concepts haven't changed,
yeah,
right?
yeah, okay. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to meet in the dark here, right? We kind of in the same area. We've got torches, flashing around. Now you can stand still and let me come to you, or we can have some kind of like exchange where I know a bit more about what you're doing, and we can probably speed it up because we've both got legs. So I will generate the README as is now. I can do that right after this call.
Yeah, but
What I ask
I
is
need
if
you
you
to
could
check
generate a README from what you're doing.
what
Is
from
that
what I'm
just,
doing.
or even just an explainer, or yeah, or just you've got a plan in your head, right?
But why though? Like I have running code that I'm deploying on a site. That's what I'm doing is deploying this database on a site. How could it not be functional if I have that test? You have no test on your stuff. No verification, no external pressures, nothing. Why would you want me to make a README? How would that change what you're doing?
Okay, yeah.
Tell me, what are you expecting to get from my README of what I'm doing?
um, just an insight if we exchange and sync.
But what? It's me that's been asking you for a README for weeks now, possibly a month, and still getting nothing. And now I keep asking, and you come back at me asking me for a README?
Yes.
What? How's that going to
Okay.
make your README?
All right. All right. Ignore that. I'll just do mine. I'll send it over today.
But is it going to be something that's based on the feedback session that we had last time?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be
Yep.
something that you checked by hand, like yourself. It's not just something you generated, skim read, and then flung over to me, because those are hard to
No, it'll
digest.
be based on our session last time, and it'll be based on me going back through the last 3 months of our conversations to see if we've missed any items or what's been implied, asking AIs and so on, pulling all that down into MDs and double
Maybe that's the
checking
part.
that.
Maybe that's the part that doesn't matter. Maybe that's the part that needs to be blank sheet of papered. Maybe if we just start with what the feedback session was last time and just iterate up on that, that's probably got a higher quality and faster chance of converging between the two of us. Because if you keep trying to pull
Yeah,
everything in
maybe.
from the past, probably that's what's slowing it down.
Yeah, maybe. It was very useful in order to get this tighter and get to the point where we can actually I can produce a README on what this is and so on. But last time you were talking about epochs being exceptionally important
Yeah,
because it's blockchain like,
yeah.
and now we can run this as many times as you want.
Right, but
And
I'm not convinced. I'm
uh,
not convinced that the purpose of the epoch has been captured well enough, and I'm not sure that what I want it to be is feasible, and that's what I want to gain certainty on. Because if it isn't, if it's not possible to make a consensus mechanism out of that epoch property or feature, then we need something else, and we need to figure that out pronto. But at the moment, that looks like the best one, and so I'm sitting here, hinging my bets on that's going to work, and I'm quite nervous about getting that concluded, either thrown out, and so we can move on, or not. Because while it looks like the best thing, I can't really move on because I'm like, well, that's the best thing until I know otherwise. Right? You see my problem?
Yeah, okay. Well, how about I'll give you the README around this model, about how it's generated, what it's doing, what rules it's going through in order to do that. These are, literally ledgers, and see if there's anything on your side that is tricky or anything I've missed. That is easy enough, because this was not easy to generate, because unless we get this actually rolling, even in an artificial idea here, where it's like, what's the likelihood of a dispute? What do you do with a dispute? There's a payout. And, you've got your weightings, you've got actors with different roles. This guy did, that, and in this project, and so on. And then you've got payout. All this is there. I can produce that easily. Is that that is what you're asking for? I don't need to ask. All I'm saying
Well,
is
I mean,
it's taking longer to get. Well, you were saying that going to white sheet of paper is fairly hard. Yeah, it is hard. And I've not done yet another README. Sorry.
right. Because you need that, because that's what you're shooting for. Like, that's your target. And if you haven't painted that out as like piece of paper number 2, then you're probably going to miss it. Probably.
Yeah. But I've been doing lots of READMEs, but the when I iterate, the README changes. It's like,
Yeah,
well,
but
that's fine. Okay.
it sounds like there might be a difference between you're trying to generate something explaining how it all works, and I'm really asking for like a what does it look like on the outside? Like, I don't really care what happens on the inside. It's probably going to change. I don't even care about the specific implementation. I care about the features that it's going to guarantee me. Right? Like how we were talking about with that query language, and I'm like, we can hold that language steady, and then I can just improve how it all works under the hood. No one will know any different, except suddenly it'll be better. Right? I don't need to write a README about how I optimize the sharding algorithm within the Git data structure. Right? No one needs to know that, but they care about, how do my queries work? What do I do to use this thing? That's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, yeah. I apologize for taking a week to do this. It's always been on the target list. I've not been in a position to write that README until, well, probably today.
But
But I can
so
get that
like
over to you.
I'm not I'm confused what it is you wanted from me generating a README. Like, I make READMEs for the modules that I've made. I can show you some if you like in the code base right now. I don't understand, and I'd like to understand what it is you wanted from that. Like, can I show you the READMEs
Well,
that I've
things
made?
like it's really simple stuff. It's like what can I expect from a nap talking to another nap?
What can you expect from it?
You
Uh,
for example, if I were to ask one nap to talk to six different naps with six different models, um, what can I expect back? Is it going to be straight NL? Is it going to be uh,
Well,
structured in some way, like
the net, I don't
JSON
know
or
is the answer because I haven't built that. As far as the design goes, is that written down somewhere? Yeah, that is written down, but not that specific question. Like, there's enough information in what I've written for me to answer it or point at something and go, "That's the answer." But like, how's that gonna? No matter what that answer is, how's it gonna change how you think about things?
a great deal because if I start talking about doing single shot, or if I talk about any kind of overseer, or if we go back, when we're talking about commander and so on,
Right.
um, it's like, what do I do with that at the moment? It's all
Right,
on
but
pace, and I'm just guessing.
so if we call those things strategies, which would be like how you would configure a nap to talk to another nap, how would any strategies at all affect the ambient attribution algorithm design? Because in my mind, they have no bearing on it.
No, the ambient attribution I've got uh, here. I've just not had time. That's what I apologize for. It's taken a week. Um, it's a tricky thing to define and model if you're not simply trying to dictate it. You're trying to get it to self-improve, and we've got epochs where we've got comparing different projects and different projects at different points of time, and it needs to get into the ledger as well and the attribution around
Right,
it.
but why does it
I've
even
just got about
matter? Why does it even matter how the bots are communicating with each other? Because those types of things that you're talking about, those are abstract concerns. They're independent of a bot actually being set up in such a way that it has, like, 6 runs at different temperatures and all those kinds of details. Like, it's independent of how we configure the bots, and that's kind of what's surprising to me and makes me think that we have a dissonance between us as to what you're trying to produce, and that's why I'm worried, because I'm like, if you don't sketch out what you think you're delivering, there's a chance that we're actually I think you're doing something different to what you actually are doing, and we need to realign somehow. That's the issue. That's what I'm trying to drive
okay.
at.
Right. I think maybe then, because I did back off on asking you for that. Partly on the my request for README is what you're doing is quite opaque.
What I'm
Um,
doing is opaque. Dude,
I
I commit at least 5 times a day. My rate of commits has gone through the roof since O1 Pro arrived. How is that opaque?
Well, yeah, but that's that's part of the problem. Um, these conversations are the sync moments where I get to understand it. Um,
Right.
Going through the commits requires your background
Like
experience
commentary
and
on it.
yeah,
Okay, well,
it's like
I think we are out of sync. We are out of whack, and I don't know exactly how, but this has happened a couple of times in the past, and I'm raising the flag now. I think we're
okay, yep.
shooting at different things here. Um, how do we settle?
I think the way to do it is not to send information both directions, what I will do is I'll send you the next iteration of the README based on our last conversation and based on the last week's worth of work to get
Okay.
to this model.
Okay.
Um, and then from that, uh, you no doubt will have some questions and so on. We can talk about that. What I'd like is a bit more, um, rather than going in and looking at GitHub. Yeah, all the information's there, but it is a big ask to go through when you're committing so many times.
Yeah, and I
What
wasn't trying to
information?
act like I'm trying to cut you off from information. I'll give you anything you want and anything you ask for. I was just calling out that I was surprised as hell that it would even matter what I said or affect how the algorithm was going to land. That's what was surprising. Like, I'll give you
Yeah, well, I
anything you
don't know.
want. I'll
That's the
give you
thing.
anything you want.
Yeah, yeah. No, the thing is,
Yeah, but
it's
you don't. What do you mean you don't know?
maybe
Like, it
as
does. It
as
also, it doesn't matter. Like, you're telling me. You tell me what the algorithm is, and I'll make it work somehow, or call you out on it. Because a lot of the bits that you're gonna rely on haven't been written. They've only been sketched. And so that's why I'm so eager to get a better understanding of where this is heading, because I'm starting to produce the bits that represent the icing components, relatively speaking. The foundation is there, and I'm like, well, fuck, if I don't get that icing right, that's wasted time and effort. And so I don't know how to make them. And so I don't know how you want them. You don't know how I want them. But when I think about the formulas for the Dreamcatcher, in my head, when I imagine what you give me, they don't have any mention at all of artifact. They don't even matter. And that's why I think we're actually doing different things, because you keep on, you use the same words, and that's I'm not having a go at you for that. But I think that we have a different model in our head of what's going on, because you keep talking about bots and bots doing things and bots having answers. I keep talking about formulas that have nothing to do with bots and nothing to do with artifact even. Like we'll make artifact fit it. And that's where I'm like, something's definitely wrong. We're using the same words, but the underlying meaning has been missed.
okay. All right. Um, I agree with that, and we need we need to think.
Yeah.
How about how about that? Was saying is I'll give you it's not even a readme. I'll give you an explanation of what's going on here. Uh,
Yeah, you can
which
rename whatever that is, but I'm like, what the fuck is happening, and what
yeah.
does it look like when it's done? Because it's not sounding like what I expect,
It should be.
but it isn't.
Where's it? Okay, right. Well, let's wait for the written thing, because then we
Yep.
get something concrete.
All right, let's do that, and let's just iterate
And
on that,
we
and
can
I'll
actually,
push
yeah.
back. I think that I will give you any information you want, but I think that if we're both providing guess shots, like that seems worse than just one person providing guess shots. Like if we nail down your side first, then from there I can then work out what my side needs to be, because the part that you're doing when it's done is actually the foundational part that needs to be the thing that we derive everything else off of. And so it doesn't really make sense to base it on something else, right? Like, this is the heart of the Dreamcatcher. This is what the Dreamcatcher is designed around, not what
Yeah.
it is designed it,
I think
right?
we're both agreeing on the next step on or this has happened over the last few years a couple of times, three, four
Yep.
times. Our resync is probably overdue. Um,
Yep.
I would if it's okay. change the subject slightly and say, this model is sweet. I can do so much with this model.
Okay, what can you show me?
Um, well, at the moment, I've got it. You can run it each time, and it's got things like people getting grumpy. You've got um, people putting in more work that comes in later to be actually not that useful. And so at the epoch, it's like, right, okay, we'll change the weights. You've got the expected
How many
weights.
projects has it been covering?
I've only been running it for 2 projects at the moment.
Are
You
they
see it. There you
independent?
go. 2 projects. They're independent. I haven't done nap to nap sharing on it yet, but that's
Okay.
not going to be a big deal. But the
Yeah, see that when you say
the
things like that, nap to nap sharing, I'm like, I think that means something different to me than it does to you. And so those types of things we need to nail down.
Yeah, yeah. It's our assumptions, isn't it? Because that's ironic, isn't it? Been banging on about AIs needing definitions and needed to be absolutely clear, and we're not being absolutely clear. And nap to nap use where even a jitter is I'm not entirely sure that your idea of a jitter is the same as my idea of a jitter.
Well,
So
I wrote
if
down my
we're
idea of the
asking that,
jitter within the reasoning folder that was used as the basis that you've been working on since then. So I made my declarations.
yep, and I have as well, and uh, we've got these are all mine. So they're all there.
Do you have one for
But
nap to nap
the thing
sharing
is,
and for jitter?
that'll be fucking hell. I don't know. If I do or don't, will it make a difference?
Well,
I
it
think you're
might.
making a point that the same point is the same point that I'm making. There you go. Just time application. And these again are self-referenced, which is really important when you start to do the concats, which is still my favorite tool. And I think the point you're making is the point I'm making is we need to just make sure we sync so we don't waste time.
Yep. Okay. I think, is there anything else we want to cover? Because I got to go soon. I still got to do this upload thing.
Yeah, no worries.
I can there. Okay,
And
I'll
I
stop
need
the
to
recording and I'll start the
head.
upload.
Yeah, yeah.